Most people think they are in control of their emotions, but the truth is, your heart often signs contracts your mind hasn't even read yet. There is a form of attachment that doesn't chase, doesn't confess, and doesn't beg to be seen. It doesn't say I miss you. It doesn't ask for reassurance. It doesn't even try to look like love. And that's exactly why it's the most dangerous and powerful force in your life. Psychology shows that the deepest emotional bonds often hide in the shadows of silence. Not because they are weak, but because they are restrained by a depth that words would only cheapen. This is the kind of attachment that watches instead of speaks. That stays present without demanding space. That feels your absence before you even realize you've pulled away. Most people think attachment looks obvious, like constant messages, emotional confessions, or clear signals. But that's not deep attachment, that's just expression. Deep attachment is quieter. It's someone whose emotional system has already adjusted around you, without your permission and sometimes without their own awareness. They don't announce it because they're not trying to convince you. Their brain has already decided you matter. And here's the unsettling part, by the time you start noticing these signs, the attachment has usually existed for a long time. Long before attraction was clear. Long before feelings were admitted. Long before anyone spoke the truth out loud. Psychologists call this nonverbal emotional bonding. It's when a connection forms beneath the layer of conscious thought, when someone becomes emotionally oriented toward you without ever choosing to be. This kind of attachment changes how people listen, how they remember, and how they react to the space between you. It alters their nervous system. It shifts their sense of safety. And once it's there, it doesn't disappear quietly. You are about to learn the 5 unmistakable signs that someone is deeply attached to you, even if they act casual, even if they deny it to themselves, and even if they haven't said a single word. Once you recognize these patterns, you won't just see them in others, you will realize who has been emotionally anchored to you far longer than you ever imagined. The first sign is a level of memory that feels almost like a haunting. It is the observation of the smallest, most insignificant details about your life that even you have forgotten. There is a moment most people miss because it isn't dramatic. It happens when you mention something casually, perhaps a story from your childhood, a specific way you like your coffee, or a passing comment about a song you used to love. Weeks or even months later, they bring it up. They don't do it to impress you or to win points in a conversation. It surfaces naturally, as if that information was stored in a high-priority file in their mind. You might pause and wonder how they remembered that when everyone else forgot. Psychology tells us this is never accidental. The human brain is a filter, it is designed to forget 90% of what it encounters daily to save energy. We forget names, faces, and facts constantly. So, when someone retains your smallest details, it is because your presence has emotional weight, not just logical weight. In the world of psychology, this is known as emotional encoding. When we care about someone, our brain stops treating their information as data and starts treating it as a survival requirement. Their brain has tagged your preferences and your history as vital to their emotional environment. They aren't just listening to your words, they are studying the architecture of your soul. They remember the way your eyes shift when you're lying, the way you go quiet when you're overwhelmed, and the specific things that make you feel safe. This observation without intention is the hallmark of deep attachment. They aren't trying to build a case for why they like you, their subconscious is simply unable to let go of anything that involves you. They have become a silent historian of your life. When someone remembers what you said when you thought no one was listening, it is because to them, your voice is the only one in the room that carries a frequency they are tuned into. They are not just remembering facts, they are remembering the feeling of you. The second sign is emotional attunement, which is essentially the ability to feel your internal weather before you've even stepped outside. There is a specific kind of connection that bypasses language entirely. You don't have to say you're tired, they hear it in the microfluctuations of your voice. You don't have to admit you're upset, they feel the heaviness in your silence. You don't have to tell them something is wrong, yet they ask you, "What's on your mind?" at the exact moment your heart starts to sink. This isn't psychic ability, It is the result of two nervous systems becoming deeply familiar with one another. When someone is attached to you, their mirror neurons, the cells in the brain responsible for empathy and understanding others' actions, become hyperactive in your presence. They begin to track your emotional patterns instinctively. They know when your laughter is a mask and when it is genuine. They sense the shift in your energy when you walk into a room, even if you're smiling. The strange and often unsettling part is that they often know how you feel before you have even processed the emotion yourself. This happens because attachment sharpens perception to a needle point. The more emotionally invested a person is, the more sensitive they become to the subtle changes in your baseline. Your tone shifts by a fraction of a decibel, your replies become 3 words shorter, your physical presence feels a bit more distant, and they feel it like a physical shock to their system. This is why they might offer you comfort before you've asked for it or check in on you when you thought you were doing a great job of hiding your stress. To them, you are no longer a separate entity, you are part of their internal emotional landscape. Your imbalance becomes their imbalance. If they consistently pick up on your unspoken moods, it's because your emotional state is directly linked to their sense of safety and equilibrium. They are not just being nice, they are reacting to a change in the air they breathe. The third sign is a visceral struggle when you pull away, even if that pull away is slight and unintentional. You don't have to announce a disappearance, you don't have to make a scene. You might just be having a busy week. You might be focused on a project or simply needing some solitude. To the rest of the world, you're just busy. But to someone who is deeply attached, that slight increase in distance is deafeningly loud. This is rooted in what psychologists call attachment sensitivity. When a person becomes emotionally anchored to you, your presence acts as a stabilizing force for their nervous system. You are the gravity that keeps their world in place. So, when that gravity wavers, they feel an immediate sense of weightlessness and anxiety. They might not confront you directly because they don't want to seem needy or irrational, but you will notice the subtle shifts in their behavior. They might start checking in more frequently with random questions. They might become more helpful or try to find small ways to be useful to you. This isn't about control or possessiveness, it's about a subconscious fear of losing emotional access. They aren't necessarily afraid of losing you entirely, but they are terrified of losing the closeness and the familiarity that has become their safe harbor. For them, your warmth is a necessity, not a luxury. When you go quiet, they don't just miss your conversation, they miss the feeling of being okay that your presence provides. This reaction to distance is one of the most honest indicators of attachment because it is nearly impossible to fake and very difficult to hide. People who aren't deeply attached can adapt to your absence with ease, they have other anchors. But for the attached person, you are the primary signal in a world of noise. When that signal fades, their inner world begins to flicker. The fourth sign is the constant seeking of proximity through invisible threads. This is a quiet sign, often mistaken for mere coincidence or casual friendship. They don't chase you with grand gestures or dramatic declarations. Instead, they simply stay. They find reasons to remain in your orbit that seem logical on the surface but are emotionally driven underneath. They might send you a meme that reminded them of you, or ask your opinion on something they could easily have figured out themselves. They might bring up an old, shared memory out of nowhere. If you look closely at these interactions, you'll realize there is often no practical reason for them to be happening, yet they happen consistently. This is proximity-seeking behavior. It is the mind's way of keeping the emotional bond alive without the risk of being rejected or exposed. When someone is deeply attached, they are often caught in a paradox. They are terrified of losing you, but they are also terrified of you finding out how much they care. To manage this, they choose the middle ground, being present without being demanding. They make themselves visible in your life in a way that feels natural and non-threatening. They are the person who always likes your posts, the person who always responds to your stories, the person who is always around when you need someone to talk to. Psychology tells us that we do not repeatedly think about or reach out to people who do not carry significant emotional weight for us. Repetition is the ultimate evidence of attachment. If they are constantly finding small, ordinary, almost invisible ways to bridge the gap between their life and yours, it's because the thought of that gap widening is intolerable to them. They are keeping the fire of the connection burning with tiny sticks because they are too afraid to throw on a whole log and risk starting a forest fire. The fifth and perhaps most profound sign is quiet, unsolicited protection. Attachment doesn't always show up as a hug, sometimes it shows up as a shield. When someone is deeply attached to you, your well-being becomes intertwined with their own. They begin to protect you in ways you don't even see, and often from things you didn't even know were threats. They are the ones who defend your name when you aren't in the room. They are the ones who notice when someone is making you uncomfortable and subtly shift the conversation or physical space to relieve that pressure. They anticipate your needs before they become problems. If they know you have a stressful day coming up, they might handle a small task for you or send a message of encouragement at the exact hour you usually hit a wall. This isn't about being a hero, it's about subconscious vigilance. Because they are emotionally attuned to you, they feel your stress as if it were their own. Therefore, protecting you is a form of self-preservation. They want you to be okay because when you are okay, their world feels right. This kind of care is distinct because it doesn't look for recognition. They don't do it so you'll thank them, they do it because they literally cannot help themselves. Their brain has categorized you as their person, and the primal instinct to protect one's own is one of the strongest forces in human nature. This quiet, invisible loyalty is the highest form of attachment. It is the sign of someone who has moved past the stage of liking you and into the stage of being bound to you. They are your silent sentinel, watching over your emotional and physical comfort because you have become the most valuable asset in their life. Understanding these signs changes the way you look at your relationships. It moves you past the surface level of what people say and into the deep waters of what they actually feel. We live in a world where everyone is taught to hide their vulnerability, where being cool or detached is seen as a position of power. But the human heart doesn't care about what's trendy. It forms attachments based on safety, history, and a deep-seated need for connection. When you see these signs in someone else, you are seeing their true self reaching out to yours, even if their pride or their fear won't let them say the words. It is a beautiful, albeit sometimes unsettling, realization to know that you are living inside someone else's mind, that your existence has shaped their nervous system, and that your presence is the light by which they navigate their emotional world. These 5 signs, the selective memory, the emotional attunement, the sensitivity to distance, the constant proximity seeking, and the silent protection, are the fingerprints of a soul that has attached itself to yours. This kind of bond doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't break easily. It is built through 1,000 small moments of observation and shared energy. It is a connection that exists in the spaces between words, in the silence of a shared room, and in the consistency of a presence that refuses to fade. Once you recognize these patterns, you can't unsee them. You will start to realize that the people who love you the most aren't always the ones making the loudest noise. Often, the deepest love is the quietest. It is the person who is simply there, always, watching, feeling, and remembering. That if you have felt these signs from someone in your life, or if you have realized that you are the one displaying them, understand that this is the essence of what it means to be human. We are wired for connection. We are designed to find anchors in one another. Recognizing this depth is the first step toward building a life of true intimacy and understanding. It allows you to move beyond the games and the masks and to meet someone where they truly are. It gives you the power to acknowledge the silent bonds that hold your world together. If this exploration of the hidden layers of attachment resonated with you, if it helped you see a relationship in a new light or gave words to a feeling you've had for a long time, then I invite you to join this community. There is so much more to understand about the human heart and the psychological forces that drive our connections. This is a journey into the self and into the way we relate to the world around us. Subscribe and turn on notifications because our next deep dive will reveal the psychology behind why some people are terrified of these very attachments and how they try to push away the people they care about the most. Don't miss it, because understanding the shadow side of connection is just as important as recognizing the light. Your emotions are the most important thing you own. Learn how to read them, learn how to honor them, and most importantly, learn how to see them in others. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for choosing to look a little deeper. Comment below with the phrase, "I see the signs now," if you've realized someone is more attached to you than they've let on. I'll see you in the next video.